Next, we will talk about how to classify tea. Classification of tea is a very important part for tea appreciation because it offers you the fundamental knowledge for you to appreciate the tea you are drinking. So for this part, it's very important. So let's explore how to classify tea. So tea can be classified in many ways, including like season, harvest time, season, harvest time, or include color. So tea has different colors. And then another way is you can classify tea by fermentation or oxidation. Fermentation means oxidation. And another way to classify tea is by processing procedures. So like, for example, green tea, white tea, or oolong tea, or black tea. They have a different processing procedure. So that is one of the classification method. And the next one is production regions. For example, for black tea is produced in many parts of the world. So some people will classify tea by the production regions, such as like black tea in India, like Assam or Darjeeling, or black tea in China, like Yunnan black tea, or we say Lepsang Shuchong from Fujian. Or in Taiwan, we have a lot of different kinds of black tea too. So for example, honey black tea or black tea number 18. So there are so many. So some people classify tea by production region and the leaf shape. But the most important methods to classify tea are number 1, by color, number 2, by season, and number 3, which is the most important method, is by fermentation. Why tea classification is so important? But if you classify tea by color, that will offer you the knowledge about tradition and then appearance from the color of tea. When you try to appreciate, you immediately associate the color with the aroma. For example, if the color is really green tea, you can expect the aroma should be like a grassy aroma. Or if the tea is like, deep brown color, so you probably will see, the aroma is probably more like honey flavor. So color is an important indication too. And by season, we know harvest time and quality. Do you know what is the best season for tea? Of course, spring. So spring offers the best quality, and harvest season is important. So a lot of tea produced in springtime. And the next one is fermentation. Fermentation gives you, the fundamental knowledge about the flavor and the processing style. Whether it's steam or stir frying, that will make the flavor different. So we will talk about that later. So this system explains why tea is so diverse, and then the tea drinking culture is so rich around the world. All right, now let's talk about classification of tea by color. So traditional Chinese tea is commonly divided into 6 colors. So we say 6大茶类. So 6 colors. When you hear people saying 6大茶类, 6 colors, it refers to the color as one kind of method to classify tea. So the first one is green tea. Green tea, like matcha, like 碧螺春, okay, or Longjing. And white tea, like 白毫银针 from Fujian, or white peony, we call that 白牡丹. 白牡丹 is also part of one kind of white tea. Or yellow tea, like 君山银针 from Hunan. It's really famous. So it's a very famous yellow tea. But let me tell you, white tea and yellow tea, these 2 kinds of tea are not so popular and not so common because the production amount is really, really little. So normally you don't get to see them. But because we are talking about how to classify tea, I still have to mention about these 2 very precious tea. And then next one, oolong. Oolong is a very big umbrella terminology for partially fermented tea, because oolong, referring to the color, it varies from light, really light greenish yellow until middle, until like deep brownish or reddish color. So this range is really big, but it all belongs to oolong. So the example is like oolong tea in Taiwan or rock tea. And we will talk about that later. And then black tea. Black tea, the color is black, but actually in our language, Mandarin, we say red, 红茶, but in English, we say black tea. So don't get confused. So black tea, for example, Darjeeling or Assam, as I mentioned earlier, or Lepsang Souchong, or Yunnan black tea, or honey black tea. And the next one is dark tea. Dark tea is English, but in our language, we say 黑茶, okay, black. So sometimes it's confused. As I said, black tea is for 红茶, but dark tea is for 黑茶. So the examples for dark tea is pu'er. But pu'er has two different kinds. One is 生茶, raw tea. The other one is 熟茶, ripe pu'er tea. So these two, only 生茶, only raw tea, belongs to post-fermented tea. I will talk about that later and explain more. But no matter what, pu'er is part of 黑茶 or dark tea. And another very famous example is 千两茶. Have you ever heard about 千两茶? 千两茶is from Hunan, China. So it's really big, like this tall and this big. We say 千两茶. But I think the weight is about 36 kilos. So really heavy. Some people keep it for a long, long time. It is similar. It's similar to pu'er. So it is one example. And another example for 黑茶, because most of people do not know 黑茶so much. So let me give you one more example. For example, 黑茶 from Guangxi, Guangxi 六宝茶. So Guangxi 六宝茶 is also a very famous example of dark tea. So for 六宝茶, they export a lot to South Asia. And some people, immigrants from mainland China or other parts of the world, living in Southeast Asia, because the weather is really hot, so they tend to drink 六宝茶 because they think 六宝茶 can help them to get rid of humidity and then the heat, sitting heat inside their body. So pu'er and 六宝 and also 千两茶, they are examples of dark tea. So each type differs in appearance, flavor, aroma, and the processing style. Now let's learn more about how to classify tea by season. As we know, there are 4 seasons: spring, summer, and then autumn and winter. So seasons, if you classify tea by season, it refers to the quality on the harvest season. So different seasons produce different flavor, aroma, and the market value. So the best, as I said, is springtime. So springtime, the leaves are much tender and then rich nutrient, because after long winter, especially like in the mountainside, after long winter time, they will have really rich flavor and aroma. And also the nutrients are rich too. So it's most expensive. And summer tea, most of the tea are harvested in the springtime, but some tea are harvested in the summertime. For example, black tea. A lot of black tea are harvested in summertime because the weather is hotter and then the flavor is stronger, and it offers black tea a rich flavor. And another example for tea harvested in the summertime is Oriental Beauty. Later, I will talk about Oriental Beauty because I think that is very interesting teas, belongs to oolong category. And then next one, autumn tea. So autumn tea offers a strong fragrance because they got sunshine and then sunlight and the balanced taste. Most of the tea are harvested in springtime, but some tea is harvested in autumn. That is pu'er. So some tea they produce poor tea in the autumn time, but not summertime. In the winter, some very warmer, warmer regions like Taiwan produce oolong, winter oolong. So we often heard people say, 冬茶, 冬茶. So that is winter oolong. So winter oolong got thicker leaves and then very soothing taste. And it has very rich fragrance. Price is not cheap at all. So some people will buy some spring oolong and then winter oolong from the same region, for example, Arisan, to compare the aroma and the fragrance. I think it's interesting. But it has different appreciation value. For springtime, the fragrance is really good and the quality is the best. But in the wintertime, it's really sweet. And it has a very different aroma. So if you are interested in that, do the experiments by yourself. As I said, buy spring tea and then winter tea from the same region and make the comparison by yourself, and you will learn more.